Welcome everyone, my name is Jacob. This is Hunt Detail. Thank you for joining me. And if you are so inclined, check out Hunt Detail on YouTube. There's a load more content there. But certainly thank you for listening to this podcast. But there's a load more content on Hunt Detail on YouTube. And if you would like to follow me on social media, check out J_Coons_Hunts at Instagram or on Instagram. But a couple of things. If you're on YouTube, you can actually see I'm sort of in a suit, dressed up, looking nice. And, you know, I don't know if you struggle with buck fever, or when it comes time to that moment of truth, that the buck comes in, the doe comes in, or whatever. But I used to struggle with that. I used to get really nervous, have a huge adrenaline dump, but I don't anymore. It's really, and the reason being is that for me, it's a business trip. When I'm in a stand, in a saddle, elk hunting, whatever I'm hunting, it is a business trip. I am there for a purpose, and it's hence the business suit. And it's not about, if you think about where you are now this season, and if you think about some of the things that the challenges, the struggles, maybe you filled a tag, but you're trying to fill some other tags. Maybe you haven't filled any tags, and you're really frustrated at this point. I think for me, there was a time where I did struggle a lot. And I would spend a lot of hours and a lot of time in the woods and mess things up or have things go wrong. And I still have that, of course. But when the accumulation of those experiences, and I would say over a decade ago, where I was starting to get back into hunting, and I had hunted when I was younger, but there was really no strategy or tactics to it. You just sort of found a tree and sat in it and hope that something happened. Now, as an adult, and there's so much more information, I have a better understanding of what I'm doing and how I can be more effective in the deer woods and maximize my time. And so when I reflect back on those times where I struggled, where I'd sit in a stand, not see anything ever for a whole season, and my wife wondered what I was really doing, I think as I got into the moments of truth, the kill time, I had put so much energy and effort and time into the opportunity that there was not an ounce of me that was nervous or had that adrenaline. I was like, this is happening, and I am now thinking about my shot. I'm not thinking about, oh my gosh, there he is. Oh my gosh, this is it. Oh, here we go. Oh, is this a dream? You know, like it has been a business trip for me for a long, long time because of the amount of preparation you put into something, the amount of time, energy, effort, and angst, quite honestly. You get frustrated with the fact that, you know, when you have time after time and time again where you're not having results. And so I just want to encourage you, if you are in that phase right now where you, as I mentioned, haven't filled a tag or are struggling, is continue the path, of course, but also use that frustration, energy, determination, angst, however you want to bottle that all up. Use that so when you do get your shot, that it is not wasted, that you are not so nervous. Because the way I think about it is that I have put so much prep energy and effort into this. I am expecting this to happen. It isn't a surprise, it's an expectation. And so when it's an expectation, my mindset is completely different. But when it's a surprise, like, oh my gosh, I found a unicorn, that's when you get the nerves, the shakes, the adrenaline dump, at least in my experience and my opinion. So take that for what it's worth. I will say another part of encouragement, and we'll shift off the business, never personal stance. The other part of this is December, and I want to throw out a couple of things for your consideration as it relates to this month, as it relates to hunting whitetail. So deer are bedded more. There's little movement. They're on sort of a food pattern, more so than a rut pattern. What I just described was the month of October. Think back to early October. Bedded, little movement, food pattern. Does that sound a little like what we're doing right now, where we're at right now with the deer woods? Now, I'm going to throw some other things. Now, the rut is over, and it's like, oh my gosh, the party's over. Why should I even go out? Why should I go hunt? I'm not going to see anything. It's going to be a waste of time. I've got other things I got to do now. Well, yeah, the peak of the rut is over, but let's throw some other things. Let's pretend it's, let's talk about that comparison of early October to early December. So little movement, bedded, on more of a food pattern, definitely on a security pattern. But I think there's probably a little less hunters, quite honestly. There's definitely no ticks, and there's a lot less foliage, less leaves. You can use your binos to cover lots of ground visually. There's the presence of sign. You can still see relatively fresh rubs that were made 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, whatever. There's the potential for the secondary rut where either does that didn't get bred come back in heat, or you have fawns that are at or yearlings or whatever that are at a weight that they can actually come into estrus as well. And so you've got that dynamic at your advantage now in the month of December, whereas a lot of times as we get past the rut, it's like, oh, woe is me. It's over. The party's over. And I just want to say, not yet. Not yet, because you have a lot more in your back pocket than you did in early October, where you couldn't hardly see anything. Even if a deer was within 30 yards of you, 40 yards, good luck getting a shot. Now, of course, the deer wood has been trampled, and there's, the deer understand what's going on now. But I just want to say there's an opportunity here. Don't let it pass you by. Of course, there's still gun seasons and muzzleloader seasons, and bow seasons often go until January, depending on what state you're in. So take advantage of that. I will lastly say that last March, when I was doing some scouting, I bumped 2 different deer on 2 different ridges. I came into a sort of this ridge area where there's drainage, there's a creek system, and there was a deer that stood up on one ridge and a deer that I had bumped on the ridge that I was on. And I made a mental note back then. And so this year, this is public land, out of state, different area. I bounce around a lot. I try to have multiple areas. And there I was hunting recently, just within the past week, this spot. Now, I went back to that spot this October and found a scrape on one of those ridges. One of the ridges was completely devoid of any sign, and one of the ridges had a scrape. So I hunted it, had a buck come in. He did something that I had rattled, and he did something I did not expect him to do. He went down into the creek system to catch my wind, and he got me. So shame on me and good on him. So I went back there just this past week and set up where I thought he came from, how he dropped down. And what I realized is I wasn't quite there yet. I did have a couple groups of does come from where they were bedded and drop down. And apparently there's a reason why they do that. I don't know if it's there's an oak that's dropping or what, but it was very clear that there's a pattern there that these deer use in terms of when they come from bed, they drop down into this creek, but don't cross the creek. And it's a dry creek bed right now, but they're doing some sort of loop. And so I just, I'm going to continue to be in the deer woods and use the intel that I gather this year for next year, just as I have been doing from last year. And, I didn't get a shot. They didn't get close enough. I was going to take anything at this point. Would be happy to shoot a doe. But I was bow hunting, and they just didn't get close. But it was still confirmation of, hey, there's a trend here. There's deer that bed here. I do see buck sign, and I will be back there probably this week. I am going to bounce around to another spot, I believe. But anyway, it's still deer season, and do not let anyone tell you different. And continue to use this time to, hunt this year's deer, but also hunt next year's deer. And remember, as Albert Einstein said, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. So keep that in mind. Please like, share, subscribe. Thank you for your time, and best of luck this season. All the best.